Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Government has embarked on implementing new and innovative ways to diversify the economy. Diego Martin and environs will soon see major roadworks in an attempt to ease current and foreseen traffic woes in the area. And Cabinet has approved the establishment of a one-stop shop enterprise, Invest TT. Thank you for joining us. Moving the Trinidad and Tobago economy away from oil and gas resources remains at the top of government's agenda. In recognition of this, Planning and Sustainable Development Minister Dr. The Honorable Bowendradat Tiwari says government has embarked on implementing new and innovative ways to diversify the economy. He was speaking at a high-level conference on national diversification strategies held at the Hyatt Regency.
We want a more equitable spread of benefits to our citizens. We want to end poverty. We want to bring crime under control. We want investment. We want economic expansion and jobs.
Plans outlining how a brighter future can be achieved through the diversification of our economy. It's this change Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development Dr. Botowari says is crucial if this country is to move into the future and other areas critical to developing a sustainable economy. Speaking at a conference held on the way forward, Minister Tiwari says government intends to establish this through the medium-term framework, which he says will be under continuous review by the various ministries for improvement and upgrade.
We have a measurement framework, the National Performance Framework, where all the ministries, clusters of ministries, which focus on the 7 pillars and the 5 priorities you will see, are measured on the basis of targets. What do I mean? The target, for instance, for food import reduction is $400 million. That is the responsibility primarily of the Ministry of Food Production. I want to say, happily, they have already achieved that target. And we are likely to take that target down. So what we measure is what the target is. If you have achieved it, fine. If you've exceeded it, we record it. And if you haven't achieved it, well, then there is more effort to be done.
He says doing this will bring about a reduction in poverty, something in which government has already seen results.
We have reduced poverty 2009 from 18.9% to 14.7% 2011 figures. And that is the focus that we have. How do you bring people out of poverty into economic inclusion, and how do you create the energies necessary and synergies necessary to get people back into the workforce and into productive endeavor? So the people are central to this entire thing.
Minister Tiwari notes that government understands the role decentralization plays in transforming the economy.
Decentralization is going to be a reality in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of legislative framework and in terms of policy within months. The policy has been prepared by the Ministry of Local Government in collaboration with the Ministry of Planning, and we are going to take that to Cabinet, and ultimately whatever legislative requirements are necessary, we will do. The idea is to devolve more autonomy onto all the local government areas and to devolve even more autonomy to the House of Assembly in Tobago, but the local government legislation does not deal at all with the House of Assembly or Tobago.
Minister Tiwari says achieving diversification will not only build a stronger economy, but will place Trinidad and Tobago on international markets for higher levels of competitiveness. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
In related news, Finance Minister the Honorable Larry Howai says strategies will be implemented by his ministry to greatly restore economic growth and expansion in Trinidad and Tobago. He discussed some of his plans at the National Diversification Strategy Conference, where other cabinet ministers were also present.
Finance Minister Larry Howai is revealing some of his ideas for the national diversity of this country. He says government plans to widen stakeholder involvement in all aspects of the industries which it controls.
The focus of my strategy rests on 3 pillars. 1, facilitation of the local stock exchange. 2, the strengthening of the regulatory framework around which this is built, and 3, the employment of public-private sector partnerships in the diversification process. Ladies and gentlemen, there's little dispute among academics and policymakers that in the sphere of economic policy, wealth creation, wealth creation and the growth of real incomes is among the prime public policy objectives.
Minister Hawaii explains the various benefits of his proposed strategy.
It is the only means for obtaining, on a sustainable basis, rising living standards and improved welfare conditions with associated reductions in poverty levels. The standard economic model, in its market-based variant, has been instrumental in advancing growth and development for many decades in both developed and developing countries. The period since 1950 has been quite unique in terms of economic growth and wealth creation for many developing countries.
The finance minister is also drawing reference to some of the policies which have proven successful in economic growth and expansion in several countries such as China and Japan.
Transformation in these 3 countries, Japan, South Korea, and China, and other emerging market countries, was anchored on some important common elements. Firstly, sound economic fundamentals have played key roles, and these are characterized by stable economic conditions, low interest rates, stable inflation and exchange rates, and fiscal and debt sustainability positions. Secondly, explicit industrial policies in support of new economic activities accelerated the movement of resources towards modern industrial activities, creating export-driven growth and buoyant external sectors.
He says steps will be taken to engage in social dialogue with major stakeholders to improve efficiency and effectiveness of the channels through which public services are delivered to the citizens of this country. Plans, he says, are also on the way towards significantly restoring economic growth in Trinidad and Tobago.
We are putting in place robust securities market regulation and oversight, which are critical to the building of a sound capital market. I expect to have legislation on new securities legislation in place by November 30th, 2012, to allow the Securities and Exchange Commission to become a signatory of the International Organization of Securities Commissions Multilateral Memorandum of Understanding, a condition which will allow the SEC to share information with other regulators in pursuit of an investigation or an inquiry with strict conditions governing confidentiality. I see this as critical to strengthening and developing our financial sector and our capital markets.
Veena Bharath, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us.
It's like no other place on earth. Paria Springs and rainforests that sing, and the blue seas and skies. But what makes Trinidad and Tobago really special is our people. Our fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers. We're aunts and uncles, neighbors and cousins, and we are officers of a new police service as well. A new service of the 21st century, the police service of tomorrow.
It's different from the old model, and what it is really is a deployment model. So it's how we deploy our resources, how we utilize our resources for their maximum effectiveness.
With new tools, new technology, new leadership, and a new sense of dedication and service to all our people. In the coming weeks, we'll air a series of half-hour specials to show you how we have been re-equipped with new computers, new communication systems, and new rapid response teams so we can respond with speed and precision.
Thank you for staying with us. Diego Martin and environs will soon see major roadworks and construction in an attempt to ease current and foreseen traffic woes in the area. Now, this was revealed by Minister of Works and Infrastructure, Senator the Honorable Emmanuel George.
The Diego Martin Highway will soon be extended from Wendy Fitzwilliam Boulevard to intersect the Diego Martin Main Road. A vehicular overpass will also be constructed over the Diego Martin Highway in the vicinity of Powder Magazine. Works and Infrastructure Minister Emmanuel George explains this is part of the government's ongoing review of highway infrastructure to make life more comfortable for citizens.
The objective of these works is to solve the existing traffic congestion in the area and to improve accessibility between Diego Martin and Carenage, Glencoe, and so on. And as you are aware, there are two fairly dangerous turns that people make at that Powder Magazine / Cokereat, in that Powder Magazine / Cokereat area. And this overpass will seek to address that particular danger to which motorists are exposed. And so improve the highway infrastructure in the area and the safety of motorists who use those facilities.
He says the benefits of the planned traffic works far outweigh the costs, as benefits will be reaped for years to come.
We expect that the extension of the Diego Martin Highway will cost in the vicinity of about $49 million, and the construction of the overpass will cost us, estimated in the region of about $42 million. As I said, we're looking at 20 years down the line that we hope that we'll be able to cater for all of the traffic that would demand that kind of infrastructure and development in Diego Martin. With respect to population and the demographics and so on, we expect that Diego Martin and Petite Valley and Carenage and so on will continue to, the populations there will continue to increase as they've been increasing over the years. And that is part of the reason for expanding the infrastructure in the area.
Mr. George says, just as with previous highway extensions, the government will hold negotiations with anyone who owns land in the path of the highway. He says while he cannot predict if persons will resist the plan, he can promise the government will go all out to ensure a smooth transition for residents who are required to move.
The country is accustomed to this kind of thing, and the country normally finds solutions over time. So I don't think that we should fear too much about this. As I said, it works out in due course, and but we will take proactive measures to deal with the people in a very humane manner, and to deal with the compensation issues and so on, and the relocation issues, using whatever skills and so on are available to us, whether it be the skills of psychologists and so on, to talk to people regarding their relocation and that kind of thing.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Cabinet has approved the establishment of a one-stop shop enterprise, InvestTT, which will facilitate a smoother flow of the investment process for businessmen looking to set up trade here in Trinidad and Tobago. Planning and Sustainable Development Minister Dr. the Honorable Bohendradat Tiwari says this will result in the streamlining of the investment process in Trinidad and Tobago.
Soon investors interested in doing business here in Trinidad and Tobago will have access to a one-stop shop that will provide all approval processes and paperwork. Planning Minister Dr. Bo Tiwari says this will take place under InvestTT and will see state agencies that deal with investment in Trinidad and Tobago fall under one umbrella. He made the announcement as he addressed a weekly post-cabinet media briefing at a diplomatic center in St. Anne's.
The investments will go to them, and secondly, they will walk the investor through the hoops, so to speak, so that the investor doesn't have to do the walking once the investment is approved. And in order to facilitate the process, the chairman of the other institutions that are part of this network of institutions that has to do with both attracting investment and executing investments will sit on the board of TT Invest.
Minister Tiwari says through this process, investors will be designated to the suitable ministry.
Once the decision is made and the investor has his approvals and is ready to invest, depending on where in locational terms that investor wants to invest, he will then liaise with one of the institutions. So if it's on an estate under the governance of ETEC, well, ETEC will look after it. If it is on one of the 5 growth poles under the aegis of the Economic Development Board, they will then see that through at the execution stage. So basically a one-stop shop, invest TT, and then deployment with the execution agency responsible. If it's finance, it goes to the finance company.
He anticipates jobs will be created as well as a stronger sustainable economy.
Approvals can be given at a faster pace, and of course investment is important to the country and the citizen, because when you invest, there is the design phase, there's the construction phase, there's the functional phase when whatever you create becomes a company. And at each stage of these things, jobs are created in the process. At the end of it, you have sustainable jobs depending on the investment.
Under InvestTT, state companies such as ETEC, the National Energy Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, the Tourism Development Company, among others, will all be linked to each other, thus making the process in Trinidad and Tobago a smoother one for investors. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
Wayne Cunningham has a sport report right after the break. Stay with us.
Informing and educating the nation, especially the young ones, about water, how it's won and processed, and how it should be protected are just a few of our major responsibilities here at the Public Education Center. The enjoyable learning environment, cultivating conservation habits, developing healthy relationships, and giving our public an appreciation of the environment in which we produce water. WASA's PEC, the region's only public education center on water.
Adults aren't the only ones who beat up on kids. Sometimes kids beat up on kids.
Every child has the right to be protected from violence, abuse, and neglect.
Because I shouldn't be afraid to go to school or play with my friends.
Because no child should be hurt by adults or by other children.
Because safety is my right. Stop the bullying.
Unite for children!
The Women's League Football FA Cup final was contested at the Hazley Crawford Stadium in Port of Spain. One of the pioneering National B teams in women's football, Real Dimensions, faced the up-and-coming Trin City Nationals, and with a host of present and former national players on show. This was a hard-fought contest, as you will see in this report from Wayne Cunningham.
Real Dimensions FC of Belmont and Trin City Nationals were in the spotlight when the FA Cup final of the Women's Football League was contested at the Hazley Crawford Stadium on Thursday. The teams took contrasting paths to the final, with Dimensions eking out a hard-fought 1-0 win over Malik City in the semi-finals, while Trin City outplayed Arima Giants to come away with a 4-1 win. The final got off to a slow start as both teams failed to penetrate each other's stubborn defenses. This shot in the 18th minute being the first. Real Dimensions had the better of the possession in the early going, but were looking shy in front of goal. Causing the most problems for the Trin City defense was national player Donnell Maskell, but her shot was not at the best. And, as it often happens, Misses are punished. The cross from Chanel Warwick causing all sorts of problems, and her sister Janelle is right in place to poke it home and make it 1-0 Trin City. Janelle should have made it 2-0 on the stroke of half-time, but Kerry Mayers pulled off a fine foot save to keep it at 1-0 at the break. 5 minutes into the second half, the Belmont squad was gifted an equalizer after goalkeeper Trisha Pascal failed to gather the Tiana Bato cross, and the knee of Alena Bergin was there to put the ball over the line. 1-1 the score. It could have been 2 for Real Dimensions after Bergin released Janine Francois with a neat back heel, but the captain failed to finish. They were living in the Trin City half of the field, and the go-ahead goal always looked on the cards. It came in added on time. National midfielder Natasha St. Louis latching on to the pass from Bergin and scoring from the tight angle to make it 2-1 Dimensions. And the fans went wild. As referee Cecile Hines blew her whistle for the restart, she followed that with a final whistle, as Real Dimensions left it late but took the Women's FA Trophy. President of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation, Mr. Lennox Watson, was on hand to distribute the medals and trophies. Next up is the Big 8 final on Sunday at the Manny Ramjon Stadium in Marabella. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
News 4 continues after the break.
Carjacking has become very prevalent in recent times. Certain makes of vehicles are more preferred targets for criminals. When approaching intersections or junctions, ensure that all doors are locked and windows are wound up if possible. Remember, crime prevention is everyone's business. A message from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Participants in the Unemployment Relief Program may soon be put to use in the fight against crime. Minister of Local Government, Dr. the Honorable Suraj Ratan Rambachan, pledges to reform the program.
Local Government Minister Suraj Rambachan says the URP should give taxpayers and the country value for their money. He says the participants should spend their time building houses for the poor, building better communities, and even be used in the fight against crime. The minister made his plans public at a strategic URP workshop held at the Crown Plaza in Port of Spain, which was aimed at strengthening and improving the system. Dr. Rambachan says these plans are all in an attempt to ensure persons stop abusing the program for financial gain. He pledged to deal with persons and sometimes entire URP gangs who are rostered to work but never show up and still get paid. He promises that the persons guilty of fraudulent activities in the program will be dealt with within the next 3 months. The minister is also working to raise the income of program participants from as little as $69 a day to as much as $200 a day by turning them into contractors. Dr. Rambachan has enlisted the assistance of the National Entrepreneurship Development Company Limited, or NEDCO, to design a program where 1,000 URP workers will be taught entrepreneurial skills and how to become contractors. He says the aim is to show participants how to make and share profits and thereby break the culture of dependency. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you so much for joining us.